Welcome to the Grand Prix 24/7 podcast, your weekly insight into the world of Formula One. Hello and welcome to the Grand Prix 24/7 podcast. I'm your host Will, and as ever I'm joined by Ben Stevens and Paul Velasco to preview the first Turkish Grand Prix since 2011. Ben, I'll throw it over to you first. This is a very popular track and one that a lot of people have been calling for some time. And how excited are you to see it with the 2020 cars in action?
Oh, I'm absolutely pumped. As you say, it's a fan favourite, and with good reason. It's just a track that's great to watch F1 cars go around, and in this era of the fastest F1 cars ever, well, you know, it's going to be fantastic to see them really put to the test.
Paul, do you have any fond memories of this circuit?
Well, I've never been to it. It was one that's only been around, I think, is this the 8th year, right? They've only had 7 races or 8 races before. It's a Herman Tilke design track, guys. Let's not forget that, because it is a super track. I mean, it is a beautiful track, and it's one of those penned by Tilke, which, you know, he gets a lot of hate and a lot of criticism for his sort of, what did Toto Wolff call it the other day? Ben, he named it what?
Oh, the supermarket parking lot tracks.
Yeah, the supermarket parking lot tracks. What's that all about? You know what I mean? And he's right. But Herman Tilke can design good stuff. It's also what he's given as a mandate. And this is, I think, he's probably his crowning glory. And it's a very great track. And I think Turn 8. I'm just going to say Turn 8, double apex. Watch them on the outside of that. When they come out of it, that's where we're going to have a lot of incidents, I think. So I'm very pumped. Like Ben, I'm super pumped. I think we're going to see cars at their very best. And the most important thing, mistakes will be punished.
With some of these new tracks that we've gone to that have more gravel traps or are tighter, we are seeing more mistakes being punished. And I think that Turkey will definitely be another example of that, although it doesn't necessarily have the gravel traps, but more due to the general difficulty. I guess the most important storyline heading into this is the fact that Lewis Hamilton can clinch his record-equaling 7th World Championship. He just needs to outscore Valtteri Bottas, and that title will be his. Ben, without kind of discussing whether we expect Hamilton to do it this weekend or next weekend, we've seen a lot of drivers kind of coming out and talking about Hamilton, but how do you rate his achievement this season? I know it's kind of only been him against Bottas, but how would you rate it as an achievement, maybe compared to some of his other titles?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the sort of tricky thing, isn't it? Because it's been only him against Bottas, and it sort of depends on how high your estimation is of Bottas, and that's obviously varies a fair bit across the F1 fandom. Personally, I think he's been stellar. I wouldn't say it's as good as maybe 2017 or 18, where he had those Ferraris of Vettel really pushing him, or, you know, some of those earlier Rosberg years. But I mean, just in terms of him extracting pace from the car and doing it consistently, which is all you can ask of him, of course, he's been right on it, and, you know, it's another amazing effort by him.
Yeah, and I think this is a track that we saw Hamilton not necessarily go well at in the past, a track that was pretty much dominated by Felipe Massa while he was in the sport. But Paul, do you expect Hamilton to tie up the title this weekend? What do you kind of expect to see from that battle between him and Bottas? Because I think Bottas probably just about had the edge at Imola prior to picking up that massive piece of debris in his front wing.
Is the championship still on? Oh, someone should have told me. I didn't realise it. Mate, it's over. Let's not fool ourselves. I'm going to put my neck on the block, and he'll do it. If he doesn't do it this race in Turkey, he'll do it wherever the next race is. The bottom line, this championship's over a long time ago. In terms of Lewis, yes, he keeps on rising. You know, as good as Valtteri gives it to him, Lewis finds an extra notch. And that's the reality. So, yeah, it's, you know, if I'm going to put it, Lewis will set the pace. Bottas will chase and maybe get pole or whatever. But at the end of the day, the quality, the class of the two drivers is just very well distinguished this year. You can see, you know, there's just no ways Valtteri is the business to give. If you want someone to actually challenge Lewis, which I don't think is the Mercedes ethos. Mercedes is they've got a very balanced, fine-tuned team. The number 1 driver loves the number 2 driver. No one cares what the number 2 driver thinks, so everyone's happy. And that's how Mercedes have cleaned up. Why will they bring Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc or whoever the new young gun is? Not now. Lewis has a chapter to finish, and once that chapter's finished, then someone else can come in. Interestingly, it won't be Max, according to Toto. So as much as Joss and them jump around, the bottom line is Lewis is their man, and I can't see Lewis hanging up his helmet at the end of the season and stuff like that. He would be super silly if he did. I see this guy hanging around until at least this formula ends, and once that formula ends, you probably do a year in the new formula if he feels he's still got it. I see 10 world championships with this guy.
So if that battle is somewhat over, there definitely is some fight left in this battle for third place in the Constructors' Championship. 1 point separating Renault, Racing Point and McLaren. It's been an unbelievable battle, and just one that's still too close to call, I think.
I think it's absolutely too close to call. And as we've sort of been saying, I think on the podcast for the last few races at least, it sort of comes down to just a moment of brilliance from one driver, or a particularly fortuitous sort of happening in the race, and it really could go either way. Those cars are all very strong as far as midfield cars go. There's not much between them. Maybe you would say in terms of drivers, you would give, I think you'd almost certainly rank Daniel Ricciardo the best, but then you might rank Esteban Ocon near the bottom of the six that make up those three midfield teams. So that sort of balances things out. And then, it'll be interesting to see, if characteristics of these particular tracks coming up suit one car or the other. I know that Otmar Safnauer is very confident that Racing Point is going to sort of be strong at these last four races. I'm not so sure about McLaren. They seem to be of the three the one that's sort of slipping back a little bit. But yeah, it's exceptionally close, and I'm really looking forward to that battle, particularly at this track where they're going to be able to race each other.
Of those midfield drivers, Sergio Perez is the only person who's actually driven at Istanbul Park before. Do you think that will give him an advantage, or do you think that just the changing nature of the car characteristics from 2011 to 2020 is just going to be too much?
Look, I'm going to be sort of a contra and just say, look, I mean, who cares? Seriously, I don't really. I don't watch about. Okay, maybe you guys can. Who was third in 2007?
Was it Renault?
Good guess, right? No, you know what I'm trying to say is that yes, I appreciate this battle for the minor positions, but me personally, and I understand people groove on it, but I don't get excited about that. I want to see guys battling for the top three.
I think that's a fair enough perspective, and I think it's definitely something that Formula One need to be wary of, and something that I am concerned about next season with the 23 race calendar is that if we do get into another situation where Mercedes are dominant, that is a lot of races with not a huge amount on the line, and I do worry about kind of Formula One diluting their product a little bit.
Well, I think the bottom line is this is only in the Mercedes era and the Schumacher era and the McLaren era do I remember anyone worrying about third place. And this is obviously the line everyone has to spin if you're promoting the sport. Third place battle is good. But people don't watch Formula One or any sport for the guy who comes third. I'm an Everton supporter. Trust me, mate. It's horrible. You don't want to watch yourself coming nowhere.
I think you're being a bit kind to Everton saying they're going to come third.
Shots fired.
Yeah, we topped the league the other day, so I was quite impressed by that. But anyway, briefly, it's very brief. Because my son's an Everton supporter too, because I don't know why he followed me. And I said to him, mate, it's the only time you're going to find soccer happiness in your whole life. But anyway, to cut a long story short, is that I think when you've got a sport like Formula One with 20 guys going for it, really, it's a travesty that only one or two guys can win. That's the reality. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell listeners, it's going to be a great Grand Prix and that. I don't think that's my job to preview it. The preview is going to be the same. Lewis and Bottas, one will be faster in qualifying, the other one, they'll race, they'll start from the front row, and then one of them will break down, the other one will chase, and they'll always say, Valtteri, sorry, your car was worse than Lewis's, too bad, and Lewis wins. And that's how Formula One's been for the last 20 years. I love Lewis, and I love the sport, and I will not stop loving it. But let's not try and make the battle for third place in the constructors the reason why we watch this. We watch this because we want good racing, and at the front, it's not happening.
While the individual Grand Prix have been entertaining, the lack of battling at the front has been, really disappointing. And barring the kind of first half of the race at Imola until the virtual safety car and Hamilton got into the lead, it was just that. But it definitely has been absent from the rest of the season. Ben, I mentioned the calendar that had been announced for next year, moving to a 23 race calendar, adding the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix to that, and as of yet we don't know where the race that will be replacing Vietnam is going to be. But what do you make of this announcement?
Yeah, honestly, as much as I was expecting it, I'm still really disappointed. I just feel so sorry for all the people that work in F1, and I've seen this firsthand how hard they work at individual weekends, and to do it for 23 out of 52 in a year, plus testing, and with 2 triple headers, it's absolutely brutal, to be honest. So there's that side which is really bad, and I think that alone should have made it sort of, a reason not to extend to 23. But the other side, I think, is that from a fan's perspective, it cheapens the individual value of each race. I think we're getting to that point now where you really can tune out for 3 or 4 races in a season and not really miss much. And the fact that the tracks that are making up this calendar and are getting us to 23, like another street race. I mean, you can say what you want about Saudi Arabia, but we don't need another street race, regardless of where it is. It's just, I just think it's a concerning sign for Formula One.
Look, I've been watching Formula One since the Flintstones, and to be honest with you, 16 is enough, really. Even 18, maybe 20 maximum, 25. Everything Ben said. I mean, you cannot condone it, and I think you're going to cheapen the product a bit. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because, as you say, Liberty have to make this thing work. But it's just, to me, it's just the sport's gone down sort of a strange direction and kind of our own worst enemy. But we've got to make the most of it. And I'd say, yes, as a fan, I love the fact that 25 races, but to be realistic, I think 20 races is probably maximum. I would have gone with 18, maybe a couple of non-championships races. I think this is an era where they could have really experimented with championship races. They could have maybe made 16 Grand Slams with the usual suspect circuits and maybe add another 4 as like every year a different circuit, or 16 and have 4. And I think they've missed a trick there, or even 12 races and 8 sort of Portimao, Mugello, whatever. But we're not in that situation. It is what it is, and it's like this. Can we change this color of the sky from blue to green? No, we can't. So can we prevent Liberty from trying to make as much money, squeeze as much money out of the product? No, you can't.
Yeah, and I think that I spoke with Gary about this, and he said that while this was Liberty's plan all along, you have to consider the impact of COVID and the loss of revenue that has created for them. And I just think that this is sadly going to be the way it goes for the next couple of years, at least until we get the COVID situation under control, because without crowds, with a reduced number of sponsors, they're just going to be losing money. And this looks like a way of basically just grabbing back as much of that as they possibly can, as soon as they can. Unfortunately, we've had the delay also to the new regulations, which means that we're going to see 23 races of pretty much the same product as we've seen this year. So yeah, it's been disappointing to see, and hopefully they'll learn from it next season. We'll see if it works, and if it doesn't work, they'll actually take action rather than just kind of playing ahead and going to 20, 25 or even 30 races in the future, because I just think that will be a real problem. The final question I wanted to ask you about, Ben, I don't know if you saw the footage, but there was images of Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly doing some promotional stuff for AlphaTauri while out here in Turkey. Do you foresee that situation being kind of tied up this weekend? I think the rumours are heavily hinting that it could be either Perez or Hülkenberg taking that seat. But do you think it's time up for Albon already, and he hasn't got any more time to save that seat?
Well, it's interesting because Helmut Marko's come out and said, I think a week or two ago, that they were giving him to Abu Dhabi to prove himself basically for 2021. But then you see these sort of things, as you say, and everything we've seen, the performances we've seen so far on track would suggest that really what can change Red Bull's mind. And of course, it wouldn't be the first time Red Bull or anyone in F1 management has said one thing and done another. So in that respect, and I think I said this on the podcast a few weeks ago, I don't think this is what is going to happen, but I would really like to see use these last four races, well, won't be four, but last three, to pit Gasly and Albon against each other at AlphaTauri, and then bring in either Perez, but probably not Perez if he's still contracted to Racing Point, or Hulkenberg for the last three at Red Bull, and at least get a sense there, from one of those guys who's a veteran, can give good feedback, get a sense of what's going on with the car and the drivability issues, as well as sort of gauging them as the teammate for 2021. So there's a lot of possibilities there. Personally, and I feel bad for Albon, and I don't I never wish anyone loses their job or loses their seat. But he definitely still has, if he somehow won a race, then Red Bull's not going to drop him. But I just don't see how we can ignore what's happened through the first 13 races and how that's going to suddenly change around to the point where he's, not half a second down on Max in qualifying, and his wingman in the race and earning podiums, on merit consistently. I just don't think he's got it in him. It might be a confidence thing, it might be an ability thing, it might be the car, it might be all three. But realistically, I don't see how any of it changes.
I agree. I don't like to see Albon struggling. Wouldn't like to see him be dropped. But unfortunately, it's the same situation that happened to Pierre Gasly and Daniel Kvyat before them, and it's happened at numerous big teams in Formula One in the past. It's just, unfortunately, for these drivers, you can't take a year and a half to kind of settle in and really get to grips with things. You got to, sink or swim, and it seems like that's going to be the case. I do agree in the sense that it'd be really unfair for Albon to lose the seat altogether, and I really hope that, although they are lining up Yuki Tsunoda for that seat, potentially next year or the year after, Albon definitely deserves another chance to go and prove himself and battle with Gasly at AlphaTauri, because otherwise that's just an example of some pretty gross mismanagement from Red Bull in putting him up to the senior team when he wasn't ready. So it'd be really unfair if he doesn't get that chance to shine back at AlphaTauri next season, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think that's pretty much all we've got time for this week. As Paul referred to, in terms of Turkish Grand Prix, there's not a huge amount to play for in terms of the championship, which is looking very much over. But it still will be a historic moment nonetheless if Lewis Hamilton does seal that seventh championship, and a moment that many people probably never thought they'd see, especially not so soon after Schumacher sealed his title back in 2004. But nonetheless, it's always great to see the cars out on track, and I'm sure we'll have a fascinating midfield battle in the continuation of that constructors battle competition for third place, even if Paul won't be following it. As always, please do get in touch with the show if you'd like to, by emailing us at podcast@grandprix247.com. Visit our website, where we're kind of going to be regularly updating with all the news and opinion from the Turkish Grand Prix. That's grandprix247.com. And you can give us a follow on Twitter and like us on Facebook by going to @grandprix247. We'll be back on Sunday to review the Grand Prix and discuss whether Lewis Hamilton did manage to equal Schumacher's record. And we'll speak to you then. Bye-bye.